one of the topics that Casey and I know about personally, and then of course I deal with it in my professional life with my clients, is the subject of grief. And Casey and I have been having a major grief experience for about 10 years now, almost 10 years. Um, my son, Benjamin Schmidt, was a Marine in 2011. Okay, so Benjamin was in the Marines and he had already decided he wasn't going to re up after 4 years. He was in at his about 3.5 or a little bit, maybe 3 1/4 years, almost finished, looking towards the end in the spring of 2012. And he let us know that he was going to be deployed one more time to Afghanistan in September of 2011. And so, you know, families have a lot of angst about things like that, and but you just do the best you can. And I've always spoken to my clients about, don't worry or fret about things. There's no point in it. It's a waste of energy. And if something happens, you deal with it when it happens. And so that's exactly what I did. I mean, my heart told me at the time my son was in harm's way, but, is out of my control. So I did not worry or fret about it.
Like every family who has some kind of tragedy like this, you always have that kind of selfish thought of, it won't happen to us. It's always someone else. And, the odds, especially, in a modern war, are for us, not against us. And I was living by myself at the time, but my mother was going to go to Arkansas. She was still living in San Antonio at the time, and she was going to go visit her then boyfriend, now husband, for his birthday, which was also October 6th. And so I was going to house sit for her dogs and her plants and everything. And so I drove over there at some point and was watching the house. And just around, I guess, 5 p.m., the doorbell rang, and 2 Marines were there, but they were in uniforms that I wasn't really familiar with. Benjamin hadn't really worn those around me very much. And so I thought they were just soliciting, and I was kind of rolling my eyes. And but then, they mispronounced my mom's name. They asked for Mrs. Whetstone. And so it's just like, oh God, we've given y'all enough, we already have some, go away. And then I saw on one of their lapels the Marine symbol and was just struck. And I don't know why, but my first thought was, well, they must think, I'm a child. I was 21, but they must think that they can't tell me anything because I'm a child. Now, I tried to get my ID and show them how old I was, thinking that, maybe they would tell me something. And one walked away to take a phone call, what should we do? And I called mom several times. I knew she had just, she was still probably at the airport, and was trying to get her on the phone. And mom answered the phone and said, the house better be burning down, because I was blowing up her phone. Do you not remember that?
I still cringe. I thought I said, this better be good.
No. I think I know where you're getting that memory from. But you told me at the time, later, that you were in the Dallas airport and you were walking down.
Correct, to the.
And I kept calling over and over, like hanging up and then calling again. And so you're like, the house better be burning down. Like, what is it? And I was not thinking about, oh, how would mom feel about this? Should I tell her right now? All I was trying to do, I was going to do anything to get the information that they were not willing to give me. And so I was just like, there are 2 Marines here, blah, blah, blah. And then I just heard, this guttural scream from you on the other end. But also that it did nothing for my determination to get this information that I needed. I needed them to tell me. And, they made it seem like if you gave permission that I could get this info, but then it kind of changed. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm sorry, like I have to hang up with you and call my dad. So I hung up with you, called my dad. He was on his way home from work, and I was like, okay, good. He's probably passing this area. And I told him what was going on. And he said, let me call home, his house. And he called back and said, there are 2 Marines at my house too. And I said, well, okay, just don't let them tell you anything. Wait until I get there. And he said, okay. And he said, this is not going to be good. And
there, that began our nightmare, a true nightmare that, it unfolded over a period of hours, because apparently the Marines policy is that they have to tell you in person. And so I was traveling, and then if there's 2 parents divorced like we were, they won't let one parent tell anyone until the second parent has been notified. So they were going to try and track me down in Little Rock and come tell me there. So that we didn't know, but that was going to take hours. Crazy, just the whole experience of the telling of it, and them and the Marines following their little protocol and rules was extremely traumatizing, for our family, which, we could do a whole nother show about how the Marines need to change their notification process.
The actual guys that were there were wonderfully, sympathetic and empathetic. And, they're called Keikos. And, they're kind of with you on the journey the whole time.
And that's a casualty assistance officer.
What a terrible, terrible job.
Yeah. And they don't know if they're going to be attacked or be hugged or thrown on the ground, and they're trained to prepare for the reactions of the family members, the grief reactions, and like I remember in my case, my knees fell out from under me, which a lot of people lose their muscle strength when they receive news like that, and it just was completely surreal. And that's kicked off a 10-year journey where I'm sure for both you and me, not one day goes by that some aspect of it is not revisited, in my mind, and I'm sure in your mind. I can't imagine a day goes by without thinking about it. So that's made us a Gold Star family. And one of the things that I wanted to say about being a Gold Star family is I was very touched by how people from all over the United States, there's little organizations, little mom and pop things all over the country who reach out and nurture Gold Star families. They may send us a flag, they may send us some medals, they may send us some medallions. They send me a note every year for Benjamin's birthday, and on the day that the anniversary of his death, I get reached out to all these years later. People do so many nice things, and then I work with all these other clients who have lost children also, and I feel guilty because we have Memorial Day where everyone talks about the loss of a military person, and they're so honored, and people put flags out and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that has really helped, me, that he, if he died and it was an honorable death, and literally they went out of their way to send him off, in the most honorable, huge, incredible, over the top way. And then I've had, other Gold Star mothers whose children didn't die in action like Benjamin did, and they had a much lesser experience in how the body was handled and how they're remembered. Even the type of the Defense Department sends you little pins that you can wear to designate that you're a Gold Star mother, and it's like the killed in action mothers get this fancy pin, where the mothers of suicides or someone that died in a motorcycle accident or a car accident or whatever, they get a lesser than pin. And it's just all that kind of stuff is just awful. But I have to say, if you were going to choose a way to lose your child, it's nice that we have this thing where they're honored in an ongoing basis, because I think one of the things a mother feels is, I don't want people to forget my child. I am the keeper of the legacy, sort of like I think a lot of mothers feel that on themselves. And then I have clients who've lost children through the opioid crisis or through car accidents or illness or whatever, and they don't get the continual respect and reaching out that I get. So I have a little bit of guilt about how wonderfully people treat us as a family of a killed in action soldier.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've thought about that a lot. I'll never forget, in 6 months or a year after Benjamin died, when we were in California, because his platoon was finally coming home and we were going to have, a ceremony with his platoon. And at some point we were in a van with 2 other Gold Star family, mostly just a couple of parents, and we were hearing their stories, and it was just devastating. They had lost a son just like you had, and their children lost a sibling, but just because of the circumstances were a little bit different. One of the parents told us about, they had to arrange with like UPS or something to have the body shipped, and they had to wait somewhere, and just get them in a box. We had, lined streets, and you feel very, we felt privileged at the time when Benjamin was brought home in that way, but to hear months later that is not just a routine thing was devastating. And
it's absolutely true that Benjamin was flown in on a private jet with a bunch of Marines, all dressed in their fancy blues, and like you said, driving from the Air Force Base to the funeral home, and people were lined up on the streets. It was like we were the president of the United States. They stopped traffic.
We also had, and because, Mom, you were still in Arkansas for most, the funeral, and I was still at home, watching after your dogs, going between there and my own house. But so I was getting your mail, and so I got the letter from the Westboro Baptist Church about just horrible things about Benjamin and about how they were going to be at his funeral. And so there's some kind of motorcycle gang of veterans, and so they
on motorcycles who guard military funerals from this awful Westboro Baptist Church group that tells families their children are going to rot in hell and that they were homosexuals and just all sorts of.
I didn't show y'all that letter at the time. I don't think
you never did, and you didn't even tell me about it till like about a few months ago, I think.
Yeah, no, I was
amazed. I was amazed. But anyway, there's just so much, to the experience that we went through, so much trauma, and and you know, everyone's heard of the stages of grief, you know, which is shock and denial, bargaining, depression, anger, and acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean you get over it. It just means that you accept that it's real. You know, like, okay, this is real, and there's nothing I can do about it. And the stages don't come in any certain order, really. You can revisit them. You can spend most of the time in anger. You know, you can come back to depression. I mean, and I have found that I've been stuck with anger for a long time. And I'm noticing after 10 years that I'm really starting to shift into deep sadness. But I still got some anger. Because I feel that war deaths are completely unnecessary and stupid. And, you know, I don't think anyone should go to war or, you know, have to die in that way. I'm totally against it. I was before this happened.
So Benjamin died in October, and Mom and I were already planning to move to Arkansas. And so we were driving up in November to Arkansas to spend Thanksgiving with the family and with John, Mom's husband now, John Cheairs. And we were on the road, and a reporter called, and, you know, Mom had it on speakerphone, and he was asking about, you know, for some comments on, you know, he was embedded with their platoon. And he was, you know, Benjamin was killed by friendly fire. And I am doing a story about the relationships with the boys and how they were very angry at the other boy, you know, who were part of the guys that accidentally killed him. And Mom and I had no idea that Benjamin was killed by friendly fire.
Lance Corporal Benjamin W. Schmidt, United States Marine Corps. Scout Sniper Platoon, Company H, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. Killed in action, 6 October 2011, while conducting combat operations against enemy forces in the Muskela District, Helmand Province, Afghanistan.
When the gunfire fades, the Marines take time to mourn their dead. They stop their activities, the mundane and the serious. On October 6, Lance Corporal Benjamin Schmidt, a 24-year-old sniper from San Antonio, Texas, was fighting on a ridgeline near Shergazi in southern Afghanistan. He was killed in a burst of machine gun fire from one of the Marines' own tanks, making a painful loss even sharper.
All we have out here is each other. We don't have anything special or any luxuries to look forward to. So when we lose one of ours out here, it hits home because, you know, we rely on each other.
A week later, the Marines paused to remember Benjamin Schmidt in a traditional battlefield memorial ceremony. In part, it was an effort to heal the rift between Lance Corporal Schmidt's sniper team and the tankers who accidentally killed him.
Sort of allows the Marines to continue and to close the door on something that happened that was horrible and traumatizing, and continue forward to complete the mission.
The memorial they built recalled the makeshift battlefield graves of those who fell in past wars. The rifle thrust into the ground, the helmet balanced on top, the dog tags to identify the body below.
The sniper platoon is filled with alpha males, and it's difficult for us to express our feelings and to let each other know how much we really care about each other. It sucks that sometimes it takes a memorial or a death of one to sort of bring that out.
Captain George Flynn requested the memorial service to help bridge the gap between tankers and snipers over the friendly fire death.
Lance Corporal Schmidt had a dangerous job in a dangerous business and was working in a dangerous environment, and under those conditions people get hurt. And in the case of Lance Corporal Schmidt and many others, people die. It happens. And we need to prepare for it to happen again. It just comes with the job. Anger and wondering what if is not healthy and will not solve anything. Farewell, brother. Rest in peace.
Then the roll call actually defined for them to show them that, look, this man is not here anymore. He's no longer in the platoon because he gave the ultimate sacrifice. It's to accentuate the fact that the platoon is missing a man.
Our major called and roll. Nice.
Corporal Corder.
Present!
Sergeant Cologne.
Present!
Lance Corporal Lons.
Present!
Lance Corporal Schmidt. Lance Corporal Benjamin Schmidt. Lance Corporal Benjamin W. Schmidt. Honor the dead.
Because the reports that we've been given were that he was killed while on patrol, and we didn't know then, but we know now that they knew at the time the circumstances of Benjamin's death and told us that it was one way when it wasn't.
To say that that's angering is an understatement, so that began a process of us realizing that you can't trust anything the Marines tell you. Like they're talkers but not doers,
And also, and I know that you mean this too, but it might come up over and over when we say the Marines, it's a blanket statement. We are so in love with the boys that were with Benjamin, and we love them and we support the military. We're more pacifists. We're not really for war unless it's absolutely necessary, but we love the soldiers. We absolutely believe in them and whatever they need to do. And the individuals that we met and became close with, we know that they were given an impossible task. Even some of Benjamin's closest friends who were at the funeral knew about it at the time and were just so plagued with guilt they weren't allowed to share the circumstances of his death, but they were just they felt very dutiful. And, you know, I don't want to speak for anyone, but, you know, I imagine understand that. And so when we say the Marines, I just don't want anyone to take that as any
I think we need to say it like the Marines organization.
like the CEO.
I do, like, you know, like, let's just say, like, if you're looking at a company and it's the management, the CEOs, the managers, I do not have any respect for them at all after the experience that we went through. Just story after story after story of baloney and miscommunication and talking but not doing, and just completely ridiculous. But yes, we have come to know the Marine boys that served with Benjamin, and they've literally been a medicine for us. So we're very grateful for them, and we are grateful for everyone's service. But, you know, let's just say we've got some Marine baggage from that experience, and there's no resolution to it. You know, there's so many things that you and I would like to see happen that might make us feel better, but I don't think the Marines are going to be very helpful in, you know, that regard.
That's been one of the hardest parts for me about this loss is, you know, I'm very much you know, I love history and I love research. I love doing genealogy things and finding court records. And so I feel like, you know, if Benjamin had died in some kind of similar circumstance, but in a non-wartime situation, I would be dogged. I would know exactly what to do to get the information and to get to the bottom of it. But in this situation, I feel completely paralyzed. Like, it doesn't matter what you know, there's no way I can get the information. There's no way, you know, they're just completely protected by, you know, wartime anonymity, and I have no recourse. And it's very frustrating when you want to do something, when you want to find answers and you know, I don't want revenge or anything. I don't think our family has ever wanted any kind of revenge. We just want to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen again.
I think that the idea that when you have a child or a person in your family, someone that you know or love who dies in a traumatic way, an unexpected way, that most people who are attached to that person that was lost need to understand what happened, and they need to do whatever they can to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that is something that really brings people peace. And we didn't get that. We know that this could happen again. And there's nothing we can do about it. We just...
Yeah, you can't file the same kind of thing, you know, because...
Can't sue the Marines.
Yeah.
So my first question for you, Casey, is what did you need that you didn't get when Benjamin was killed?
I think in a way we were all paired off. You know, Dad has his wife, you know, my stepmother of 20 plus years. You know, you had Johnny. And I feel like, you know, the main cast had their own person who at night they could confide in and cry in the arms of and explain everything they were feeling. And Benjamin was my person. And so I didn't have the person. And so the next person, or, you know, people I would go to would be my parents, but like I felt like they were already paired off, and that by the time, you know, when I would get around to y'all had already talked through it and it wasn't that y'all weren't in the mood, but it was like, well, you know, like let's let's be normal, right? You know, it just, and it wasn't that y'all refused me or anything, but it just didn't feel like the right time ever, you know, to talk about it, but there wasn't anyone else. And, you know, I definitely feel like I was forgotten and isolated and alone. I can tell because family members still to this day will say like, oh yeah, well you were there at that thing, you know, we did for Benjamin right after the memorial service. Like, nope, no one told me. I was by myself at a house, you know, no one told me, you know. And it's interesting because I feel completely, you know, like I was done a disservice, but I have no feelings of anger or, you know, about you and Dad and you know, I mean, and it might seem like I'm just saying this, but I know y'all were going through the exact same thing, and I don't hold y'all at fault at all, you know. I am able to feel like I was left by myself and not tended to, but I don't hold any feelings of resentment toward y'all because y'all were going through the exact same thing. And
I really think that I was incapable of being there for anyone.
Yeah.
You know, physiologically. I remember during that period of time, Benjamin had a girlfriend of a few months when he passed away. And as soon as she heard that he had passed away, she was living in California. She flew to San Antonio to be with all the family. And her mother called me at some point and said, can you check on her and tell me how she's doing? And I just remember thinking in that moment, I can't do anything. I don't have the energy to look after anyone else right now or to even find that out. I felt in that moment that she was asking me something impossible. Just like, oh my God, do you realize what just happened? Like, I just lost my son, you know, and you're asking something of me right now. I had nothing to give.
I think I was just old enough where people didn't care, you know. And I'm not saying y'all didn't care about me, but, you know, I wasn't a child. So, you know.
You were very self-sufficient and
well, and people
and you know, and so I think that people took that for granted, perhaps. And but this let other people learn from our mistakes, you know, because that was a mistake and it's something that I deeply regret. And I think if you're aware of it, if something like that happens to you or something like that has happened to someone that you care about, is to make sure the other immediate families are tended to, you know, in some way, shape, or form. One of the other things I learned is so many of my friends said things to me like they sent me notes or whatever, phone messages or Facebook messages or whatever. I'm not going to bother you now. I know things are busy, so I'm not going to come see you, or, you know, I'll see you after all of this. And then I never heard from them after that. And the other thing is, as you well know, your dad's house looked like a florist. He got so many flowers and so much food from people. And I got, I think, a barbecue chicken from one of my friends and no flowers. And it's because I remember you coming over and just going, oh my God, Dad's house is, you know, like that. And so you think that, oh, surely that person's inundated with visitors and guests and flowers and food. Don't tell yourself that. If you've got a loved one or someone you care about who loses someone, show up, bring them food, bring them flowers, do something, because that assumption, I had so many friends assuming I was taken care of and I wasn't, and so that's another lesson learned. Now when I have a friend who loses someone or something, I don't tell myself, oh, they're probably, no, reach out, tell them you care, do something for them, some sort of tangible action. I felt also in losing, Benjamin became a war hero. They really focus on the parents in that honoring, and a lot of rituals and a lot of nice things are done for the parents. Or if the lost soldier is married, they go out of their way to make the spouse feel special and taken care of. And I realized again that they don't have that same acknowledgement for the siblings. And I felt so terrible about that. You just did not get the honoring and the acknowledgement that you deserved for that.
It's I felt that, but it's hard to say it because if I say it, I feel like I'm just saying something like I should be getting more, which doesn't come naturally to me. And it's not that, it's just even when you were talking about Gold Star families and them sending you cards and stuff, I had no idea. I didn't know about that. And yeah, it just, there's no category for siblings, and I don't want to take away from what parents receive or what spouses or children receive. It's not that at all. And it's not that I want to be coddled or given special privileges, but I do feel that my grief is special because, especially being in a divorced family, Benjamin and I are the only people that know everything about both sides of our family. Both of our parents had remarried. We had all of these extended families. We had all of these experiences. There were ups and downs of our biological parents being contentious with each other as far as custody or things like that. And, we were the only ones that were there for all of it. We were the ones that both loved both parents and experienced all of it. And I didn't realize it until later, but he was the personification of just validating my entire life, and I lost that.
I think there's so much to learn from our experience, and so much good can come from our mistakes. It breaks my heart, that was what your reality was. And
I don't think y'all did anything wrong.
I know, I hear you, but no one likes to see their child suffer and feel despair or anguish, and it's just, it's obvious that losing your only sibling would be a devastating, multifaceted thing to have to deal with. If Benjamin came back, what would you say to him?
If I could tell him anything, I would say, love you, and I miss you. I'm struggling more than I think we both would have anticipated. I don't know when I'll stop struggling, but that I hope that I'll make you proud in the end. For sure, I will watch over our parents and won't do anything to hurt them or hurt you, and that your friends are as good as you described. You know, his platoon buddies. I wish I had listened to him more about his stories, about his buddies, because
maybe that's another lesson learned. You know, I think that we can't do a show like this without talking about lessons learned and advice we give for others.
Chris, attack, hunt! Lance Corporal Benjamin W. Schmidt, hometown, San Antonio, Texas, 24 years old. Date, October 6, 2011. Unit, 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, Camp Pendleton, California. Died while conducting combat operations in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. Present!